The morning sun stretched its gentle light across the small village, painting the bamboo fences and clay walls in shades of gold. Life here was simple, almost fragile, but it carried with it a quiet kind of warmth. Every day, Dee pushed his old bicycle along the muddy path, carrying firewood, sacks of rice, or sometimes little Maya balanced carefully on the back. The bicycle creaked under the weight, and though Dee never complained, the tired lines on his face spoke of the struggle. Huyen often watched him from the doorway of their modest home. Her heart tightened each time she saw him pedaling up the hill, sweat soaking through his shirt, hands gripping the rusty handlebars. She knew he deserved more, something that would ease his burden, something to show him how deeply she valued all the sacrifices he made. For many months, Huyen had been quietly setting aside coins from her small earnings, money she earned from selling vegetables, sewing clothes, or helping neighbors at the market. It wasn't much, barely enough to matter to most people. Yet to her, it was hope. Hope that one day, she could place in Dee's hands something more than words, something that carried both gratitude and love. She never told him about this secret. Dee was the kind of man who would refuse anything that cost her too much effort. He would smile, pat her shoulder, and say, "Keep it for Maya's future." But Huyen wanted this moment. She wanted to give back, even just once. And so, under the golden sky of another quiet morning, a thought rose in her heart, unexpected yet firm. She would no longer save that money for later. She would use it now to bring Dee a gift he would never expect, a gift that could change their daily lives: an old motorbike. Huyen carried the secret in her chest like a hidden flame. Each evening, after Maya had fallen asleep and Dee rested from the day's work, she would quietly take out the small cloth pouch where she kept her savings. The coins clinked softly in the dark, a fragile music that reminded her of every hour she had bent over needle and thread, every basket of vegetables she had carried to the market, every smile she had forced through her weariness. She knew Dee would never buy such a thing for himself. For years he had accepted hardship without complaint, choosing instead to pour everything into Maya's needs and into building a simple home for them to share. Huyen's heart ached with admiration and also with guilt. He had given so much, yet what had she truly given back? One afternoon, she gathered her courage and walked to the edge of the village, where an old mechanic often repaired farming tools and second-hand vehicles. Rows of rusted bicycles and dusty motorbikes leaned against one another, forgotten by time. Huyen's steps were uncertain, but her eyes searched with determination. The mechanic, surprised to see her alone, asked gently, "Are you looking for something, sister?" Huyen hesitated, then whispered, "I want a motorbike. Not new, just something strong enough for the road. Something Dee can ride to work." Her voice cracked at the name, a mixture of love and quiet resolve. The man studied her for a moment, then pointed to a faded, old motorbike tucked away in the corner. Its paint was chipped, and the seat was worn, but the engine still had life. Huyen's fingers trembled as she touched it, as though she were already imagining Dee's hands holding the handlebars instead of his rusty bicycle. She reached into her pouch, carefully counting the money she had saved. It was just enough, barely enough, but it was all she had. Her heart pounded with fear and joy. The decision was made. The day she brought the motorbike home felt like carrying a secret treasure. Huyen walked beside it slowly, her hands gripping the handle as if afraid it might vanish before reaching their yard. Every step stirred both nervousness and excitement inside her. The engine was old, its paint dulled by years of rain and sun, yet to Huyen it shone brighter than anything she had ever owned. She stopped just before the bamboo gate, glancing around to make sure Dee was still out working. The yard was quiet, only the sound of Maya's laughter echoing faintly from inside. Huyen hurriedly pushed the motorbike behind the small shed, covering it with an old cloth. Her heart raced, cheeks flushed. It was the first time in a long while she felt like a child planning a surprise. That evening, as the sun dipped and shadows stretched across the fields, Dee returned, pushing his bicycle heavy with firewood. His shirt was damp, his steps slow but steady. Huyen watched him quietly from the doorway, her chest tightening with both pride and sorrow. She wanted so badly to ease his burden, and soon he would know she had tried. After dinner, while Dee washed his hands by the water jar, Huyen whispered to Maya, "Tomorrow, we'll show him. Don't say anything tonight, okay?" Maya's eyes widened with excitement, her little hands covering her mouth as she nodded eagerly. The night passed slowly for Huyen. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining the look on Dee's face when he saw the motorbike. Would he smile? Would he be angry that she had spent all her savings? Or would he, for once, allow himself to accept a gift without hesitation? She pressed her hands together, as if in silent prayer. Whatever happened, she only hoped he would understand. It wasn't about the money, or even the machine itself. It was about love, her way of telling him, "You are not alone in carrying us forward." Tomorrow, the surprise would unfold. The next morning was unusually bright, the kind of morning when even the breeze seemed softer. Huyen's heart pounded as she prepared breakfast, sneaking glances at Dee, who sat on the bamboo stool, mending the strap of his worn sandal. He looked tired, yet calm, his hands steady despite the cracks and calluses that told the story of endless work. Maya tugged at Huyen's sleeve, her eyes sparkling with impatience. Huyen nodded, finally gathering her courage. "Dee," she called gently, her voice trembling, "come with me. I want to show you something." Confused, Dee set aside his sandal and followed her to the small shed. His brows furrowed when Huyen stopped and pulled away the old cloth. There it was, the faded motorbike, its frame scarred with scratches, but standing proudly as though it had been waiting for this very moment. For a long breath, silence fell between them. Dee's eyes widened, his hands frozen at his sides. He stared at the motorbike, then at Huyen, as if searching for an explanation. Huyen's lips quivered, her words coming out soft but firm. "I saved what little I could. I wanted you to have this, so you don't have to ride that bicycle every day. You've carried us long enough on your shoulders. Let this carry you, even just a little." Maya clapped her hands, shouting with joy, "Papa, now we can ride together." Dee stepped closer, slowly running his hand along the handlebars. His throat tightened, eyes stinging as if the weight of all those silent years had suddenly pressed against him. "Huyen, why would you?" His voice cracked, unable to finish. Tears welled in Huyen's eyes. "Because you deserve more than hardship, Dee, and because I wanted you to know how much you mean to us." The air grew heavy with unspoken feelings. Dee turned away for a moment, blinking hard, then finally faced her again. His lips curved into a smile, faint but filled with warmth, a smile that spoke of gratitude deeper than words. Dee could no longer hold back. He reached out and pulled Huyen into his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might slip away. Maya squeezed herself between them, her laughter ringing like a bell. And suddenly the three of them were wrapped in a circle of warmth stronger than any words. The motorbike stood silently by their side, old and imperfect. Yet in that moment it became more than just a machine. It was a symbol of love, of sacrifice, of all the quiet strength that Huyen had carried in her heart. It spoke of nights she had counted coins under the flickering oil lamp, of mornings she had endured hunger just to save a little more, of the unspoken promise that she would walk beside Dee no matter how hard the road became. Dee whispered, his voice breaking, "I have never needed anything but you and Maya. But this tells me how much you've thought of me. I will treasure it, not because it makes life easier, but because it came from you." Huyen buried her face against his shoulder, tears sliding down her cheeks, not of sorrow but of relief. She had feared he would be angry, but instead she found acceptance and gratitude. For the first time in years, she felt that her love had reached him fully, without barrier, without hesitation. As the sun rose higher, Dee wheeled the motorbike out of the yard. Maya squealed with joy as he lifted her onto the seat, and Huyen stood watching, her heart swelling. When the engine sputtered to life, a puff of smoke trailing into the sky, it was as though their life itself had taken a new turn. It wasn't about speed, or convenience, or pride. It was about moving forward together, three souls bound by hardship but lifted by love. Lesson: true gifts are never measured by their price, but by the heart that gives them. In a world where life is often heavy, the most powerful act is to ease the burden of those we love, even in the simplest ways. The story of Huyen and Dee teaches us that the greatest gifts are not defined by wealth or perfection, but by love and sacrifice. Huyen's old motorbike may have looked worn and ordinary to others. Yet for Dee it became a treasure because it carried the weight of her silent efforts, her sleepless nights of saving, and her unspoken gratitude. True love is often shown in the simplest ways, in the meals shared, in the struggles endured together, in the courage to give even when we have little. When we choose to act with kindness, no matter how small, we remind those we love that they are not alone in their journey. In the end, happiness is not found in having everything, but in knowing we are cared for, remembered, and supported. Just like the motorbike in the story, our gestures of love, no matter how humble, can become symbols of hope and strength for the people we cherish. When we look closely, life is not built on grand gestures but on the quiet choices we make each day. Huyen's decision to give her savings for Dee's motorbike reminds us that love often means placing another's comfort above our own. It is in these sacrifices, invisible to the outside world, that the truest bonds are formed. Dee's tears showed us another lesson, that receiving love is as important as giving it. Many of us carry burdens silently, believing we must endure alone. But when we allow ourselves to accept help, to embrace the care offered to us, we open the door to healing and deeper connection. The old motorbike may rust and fade with time, but the memory of that gift, the love behind it, will never wear away. It will live in their hearts as a reminder that even in hardship, joy can be created through generosity and trust. This story teaches us that no act of love is ever too small. A worn motorbike, a shared meal, a kind word, all of these have the power to transform lives. In giving with sincerity, we not only change the path of others but also discover the true meaning of happiness ourselves.